This week on Christian World News, Syria's church under fire as the Turks and the Russians take over their territory. Why do Christians fear for their lives? Plus, a life or death fight this Iraqi family in an impossible position. Their government is ordering them to return home at risk of their son's life. And proclaiming the gospel and changing lives, how a dream from God started a ministry in Asia that's reaching millions today. Welcome to Christian World News. I'm Gary Lane. Turkey, Russia, and the Assad regime are now in control of northeast Syria, an area where Christians and other religious and ethnic minorities once enjoyed safety and freedom. It's now occupied by forces that want to see them leave or wiped out. Chris Mitchell reports on the dangerous new reality.
Syrian and Turkish troops displayed flags at what was the Kurdish headquarters just 2 weeks ago. CBN News has learned some experts on the region are concerned the people leading the self-administration government might be arrested or that there could be retribution and revenge killings by the Assad regime for the people who just 2 weeks ago were the main U.S. allies in the region. But they say it could be averted if the U.S. stays in eastern Syria. On Capitol Hill, there's talk of war crimes by troops allied with Turkey during the invasion.
We would say that Turkish-supported Syrian opposition forces who were under general Turkish command in at least one instance did carry out a war crime, and we have reached out to Turkey to demand an explanation.
And if accurate, and I assume that they are accurate, they would be war crimes, as best as I know the law of land warfare.
At the White House, President Trump declared victory and lifted sanctions on Turkey.
This was an outcome created by us, the United States, and nobody else. No other nation. Very simple. And we're willing to take blame, and we're also willing to take credit.
The president also warned Turkey it needed to protect religious minorities, or he would reimpose sanctions. From inside northeast Syria, Christians issued a stark warning about Turkey.
Turkey is now conducting an ethnic and religious genocide against the people of northeastern Syria, in particular the Christians. Turkey is using the extremist terrorist groups to occupy the Syrian territories. Now in the region occupied by Turkey, all the Christians, Yazidis, and Kurds fled their homes, and only the radical jihadists are there.
Those extremist terrorist groups the Syriac Christian Union blamed are the Free Syrian Army that Turkey uses as their shock troops. It's a military unit some call ISIS 2.0.
The photographic evidence has emerged that some of the fighters have been positively identified as former ISIS people and former Al-Qaeda people who've just kind of, remustered, so to speak, into this new Turkish-supported formation. There's been evidence has emerged of the soldiers doing ISIS salutes. Some examples even of guys wearing patches and badges of ISIS. It's as clear-cut as that. And certainly, footage emerging of them talking to their phone cameras, so to speak, and then putting it up on the internet, they or their comrades, in which they're, planning, to deal with the apostates and the infidels.
Meanwhile, the humanitarian crisis continues as hundreds of thousands of people forced to flee their homes have no place to go.
Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Chris, tell us more about this warning by Syrian Christians. What's happening with them?
Well, it came from the Syrian Union, and they're warning of a Turkish genocide, apparently mostly from the Turkish allies, the Free Syrian Army. They've been accused of war crimes and atrocity. They're basically having ethnic cleansing right now. Ras Ain is one of those cities that the Turkish army, along with these allies, have already taken over. And I was watching video earlier today, Gary. They're basically taking over the city. The residents have left. So that's just an example of the ethnic cleansing going on that these Christians are warning about, and genocide, particularly from these jihadists. Really, somebody has called these troops ISIS 2.0. So these are the kind of people that Christians there in northeast Syria are facing in some areas.
Why is Erdogan targeting Christians and the Free Syrian Army doing this as well?
Well, I think they have a jihadist purpose here. They call themselves the Army of Mohammed in some places. And we have seen this play out last year. Gary, we've talked about this before in a place called Afrin, that the Turkish army, along with these jihadist allies, have taken over, ethnically cleansed that city. They burned churches and hunted down Christians. I think we have to recognize that based on what we see in social media, what we'll see in some of their statements, that many of these allies of the Turkish army see themselves as performing a jihad against the unbelievers and the apostates.
A lot of people think the Free Syria Army should be disbanded because of that. So are you in contact with these believers, and what help are they looking for, Chris?
We have been, and practically some of these believers are asking for financial help. They just don't have any ATMs. There's no banks that they can look to. Some people are, need food and shelter and provisions. So they really need help, practical help. They certainly need prayer, and they need, I think, the support of Christians around the world. I think when I saw this press conference of the Syrian Christians, I think their appeal is to believers in the West, especially, to please pray for us, speak up for our behalf, and, that their brothers and sisters are facing genocide, facing a lack of provision and finances. And I think they're asking the church in the West to step up, to speak out for them, pray for them, and help them practically.
And quickly, Chris, tell us about their faith. How are they holding on?
Well, they're looking for Jesus. They're keeping their eyes. We're in touch in particular with some people from a Church of the Brethren in Kobani. You've been there, so have I. And their faith, as far as I can tell, is holding strong. But they really are looking for the people in the West, the church in the West, to stand beside them during this crisis.
There's a lot to pray about, right, Chris?
For sure, Gary.
Okay, Chris Mitchell from our Jerusalem Bureau, thanks for joining us. This family could be forced to choose between defying their government or letting their son die. Why is Iraq putting them in this impossible position? Family caught in a bureaucratic trap, and the life of their 2-year-old boy hangs in the balance. Why is Iraq's government demanding the family leave America and the medical care he desperately needs? Eric Phillips reports on the gut-wrenching decision they face.
The journey for this family began in Iraq, where the government helped make it possible for them to come to America. Now, Iraq wants them home, and that's literally creating a life or death decision. At first glance, John Boutros appears like a healthy, energetic 2-year-old. Sadly, there's much more to this toddler than immediately meets the eye.
The most difficult part for me, seeing my child suffering as a mom.
And I cannot imagine losing him. It's very difficult.
And it makes the entire family's situation difficult as well. In 2013, Wissam Toma and his wife, both Christians, left Iraq for him to attend Virginia Commonwealth University and earn a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology. During that time, the couple had 2 children, Miriam and John. The family celebrated at Wissam's graduation in 2018. Behind the smiles, however, was worry.
It's very difficult and very frustrating, very stressful too.
The stressful situation began with their son, John.
He was fine, he was happy, nothing was wrong with him when he was born.
Then, at only 6 months old, John contracted a viral infection. Although it went away after a couple of months, it left him not wanting to eat. Doctors eventually discovered painful ulcers and fluid going to John's lungs. As he began to lose weight, doctors inserted a feeding tube.
He was not comfortable at all. He was sad, congested all of the time from that tube. He'll sneeze, the tube will come out, and we have to put it back. It was a very kind of painful process. Sometimes blood will come out of his nose, he'll choke.
Then came unexplained seizures, kidney stones, and abnormal growth. Doctors ran all kinds of tests looking for answers. Finally, in July, the family got a diagnosis from doctors here at the Children's Hospital of Richmond at VCU that answered some questions, but perhaps created even more. John was diagnosed with a genetic disorder. It's called Nicolaitis-Baraitser syndrome.
It's very rare. I have never seen a case with it. There are 75 cases in the world. He needs a number of physicians to work with him, neurology, kidney doctors, feeding and developmental specialists that we have here at Children's Hospital of Richmond.
Big open.
Treatment that John certainly would not get back in Iraq, although that doesn't concern government officials there. They want Wissam back because he signed a government contract to receive the scholarship.
The agreement is if the student doesn't come back home, he's required to pay back all his due on a lump sum.
And that totals more than $300,000, money the family does not have. Wissam's offered to pay back the loan in installments, but Iraq says no. He's reached out to both the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad and the Iraqi Embassy in Washington. Neither can help due to the binding document. What's worse, Wissam's siblings co-signed the contract, and now the government is garnishing their pay.
They say, I know you're trying your best to help Dad, but you have to come back.
His family back home is in a situation because of us, and we care about them too. But we had no choice in this situation also. Nobody wished to have a sick child.
After being turned down for a loan, the family started a GoFundMe account online, but have only raised a fraction of what they need.
As Christians, we always hold our cross and walk everywhere. Like in the Psalm 23rd. Even if I walk in the valley of shadow of death, I shall fear no evil because you are with me. So this is our life there. We accept everything, but now the major issue of us is John's health.
What do you want to see happen?
A miracle.
Yes.
We have faith in God, we believe in God, and we believe in miracles.
The family believes there's an answer to their situation, but so far they haven't found it. They're hoping that by getting their story out, someone may have a suggestion that will point them in the right direction. In the meantime, they're feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders. In Washington, Eric Phillips, CBN News.
Thousands gather for a celebration 25 years in the making. The global impact of CBN Asia and where it's headed next. 25 years ago, CBN Asia was launched in the Philippines. From very small beginnings, it expanded exponentially to spread the gospel throughout the island nation and surrounding countries. Earlier this month, we celebrated this milestone anniversary in Manila. CBN's George Thomas was on hand.
It was right here in this very building in the very heart of Philippines' capital city that CBN Asia was birthed 25 years ago. Today, using a host of multimedia platforms, a thriving prayer and counseling center, numerous humanitarian projects around the country, and an amazing cross-cultural missions initiative, CBN Asia is positioning itself here in Manila and around the country to reach a whole new generation with the message of Jesus Christ. A generation that's increasingly addicted to the internet. This year, Filipinos took top spot in the world for most time spent online. The average person in the Philippines spends 10 hours and 2 minutes on the internet every day.
The landscape has changed a lot, and there is more noise now. Real noise, fake noise, noise, and we really have to speak the truth to cut through the noise.
To cut through the noise, millennials like Sheena Ferrer, who make up a sizable portion of CBN Asia's 211-member team, is creating inspirational content for social media platforms, as well as producing web-based shows that target a tech-savvy generation.
Through digital media, we can evangelize, share the gospel online, and maximize all of these platforms.
It was a different media landscape when Gordon Robertson opened the Manila office in 1994. Malu Ibanez was part of the team 25 years ago that helped Gordon set up CBN Asia.
What were those early days like?
We practically had nothing. We had used furniture, used equipment, a TV set, a U-matic machine that you had to pack for it to finally run.
Can you do that papa again?
Pack.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, man.
Welcome.
Yeah,
nice
awesome.
to see you again,
Congratulations,
bro.
man. Yeah.
Edwin Arceo was also there during the early days and remembers the financial struggles of establishing a non-profit organization.
We really had to pray for it, for miracles to happen.
Myla Villavicencio, who has been with CBN Asia for 22 years, says miracles did happen, but only because of prayer.
Prayer was something that we learned about from Gordon Robertson. He really established CBN Asia on the bedrock of prayer. Everything we did had to be prayed for, prayed about. We didn't do anything without hearing from the Lord.
Through these platforms, we can continue to reach millions of souls for Jesus. One post and one click at a time.
CBN Asia is today at the forefront of pioneering a host of innovative strategies to reach the nations for Christ. On a recent Monday,
no, you don't hug first. I hug my love. Oh, yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
You look great. Good to see you.
You remember Catherine.
Gordon, his wife Catherine,
I got ready to get down.
and Nedra and Scott Ross joined the staff here in the Philippines to celebrate CBN Asia's 25th anniversary. It was a time to reflect on God's faithfulness. It is clear Gordon is among family here.
People would call Gordon suplado, like a bit aloof and all that. If you don't know Gordon, you would think he is, because he's not chatty as some others are. But as you come to know him, you get to feel his love for you, because he loves people. He cares for people in a quiet way.
And Lord, I thank you for Peter.
A special bond forged during those early years and continues 25 years later.
I recognize the plan and purpose of God. I recognize that, when he called me back to Virginia Beach in 1999, I went kicking and screaming, but it was the right thing to do at that time. And it's great to come back. It's great to see what they've done. At the same time, it's bittersweet because I would love to be here. It's good to be home.
Gordon urged the Manila office during All-Staff Chapel to look beyond their borders.
And he will give you the anointing and the ability and the strategy and where to go and how to go and what to do. He will give all of that to you. We dedicate every person here to you.
The staff then joined Gordon in dedicating new office space on the 9th floor of this building that will serve as CBN Asia's call center. From here, Filipino counselors will work in various shifts to pray and minister to Americans who call in to the 700 Club. Another team will focus on internet and social media evangelism. In addition to hosting a 25th anniversary gala event honoring CBN Asia's donors and a weekend time of ministry with staff, the week of celebrations included a worship concert bringing together some of this country's top Christian artists as well as media influencers. The concert, dubbed All for the One, saw some 7,000 people pack Manila's Araneta Coliseum to celebrate CBN Asia's milestone and to hear Gordon Robertson's charge to remain faithful to preaching the good news of Jesus Christ to the world.
And now, Lord, we're bold enough to say, here we are, send us.
George Thomas, CBN News, Manila, Philippines.
A 1,500-year-old church dedicated to an unknown figure. And Christians in the Middle East learn how to love in the face of ISIS. Emily Jones brings us those stories and more from Jerusalem.
Welcome to Jerusalem for this Inside Israel report, where we tell you what's happening in Israel and the Middle East. Israeli archaeologists have uncovered an incredible 1,500-year-old church, and it stands out among all the rest. This Byzantine-era church was found near Israel's Ramat Beit Shemesh neighborhood. It was erected during the time of Emperor Justinian in 543 AD. The complex was once adorned with detailed mosaics and colorful frescoes, some of which you can still see today.
The Israeli Antiquities Authority, in partnership with the Bible Lands Museum in Jerusalem, already noted while the excavation was ongoing that this site is phenomenal. This church by far surpasses most of them by its size, its preservation, and its association to a martyr.
The church was dedicated to a mysterious figure known today as the Glorious Martyr. Archaeologists aren't sure who this martyr was, but whoever he is, he definitely left his mark on the Holy Land. Well, Israel is converting air into drinkable water for residents of a small town in northern Colombia. The Israeli company WaterGen has created an award-winning machine that literally produces water out of thin air. That technology is in Colombia thanks to the partnership between a Colombian pastor and the company. Now, WaterGen is providing clear, drinkable water to the most needy communities in Colombia. WaterGen isn't just helping in South America, it's going all around the world to provide safe drinking water to those who need it most. Every day we hear reports about terrorism, persecution, and martyrdom in the Middle East. Many of you watching this want to help, but just don't know how. We spoke to one woman who says she heard from the Lord about how Christians everywhere can effectively confront terrorism and shine a light in this region. She tells all in a new book called Love in the Face of ISIS. Take a look.
Love in the Face of ISIS is really just carrying God's heart into conflict and asking him, how do we respond? I had a vision of being seated in heaven looking at the earth from God's perspective, and I knew that that was a prayer directive. We need to pray into the situation the way that he does. So when we pray, we realign our thoughts and our attitudes, our perspective, our eyesight, our vision with what he's saying and doing.
So powerful. Varela gives 7 prayer strategies you can follow the next time you pray for this complicated region. You can see the full interview and stories just like these this week on our Jerusalem Dateline program.
Well, thank you, Emily, and thank you for joining us this week. Until next week, goodbye, and God bless you.